Welcome back to Rudy's 1/6 World for episode 17 of our new figure showcase, where I'll be doing a quick review / posing session with the newest edition of my collection. And for today's episode, we're going to be opening up another figure from my growing Damtoys Gangsters Kingdom line. And today's selection is actually not a member of any of the actual gangs, but it's a side story character called Saxon. So, as most of you may know by now, this is an original line from Damtoys, where they take famous personalities and create hyper-stylized, almost caricature-like portraits, and then create a character to populate this Gangsters Kingdom world. Now, up to this point, I've been reviewing members of the Spade Gang. This figure doesn't actually belong to either of the gangs and is part of a side story segment of the line. And I guess the point is that they are characters that impact the gangs but don't actually belong to either of them. So Saxon's backstory, basic premise is that he was one of the older members that helped create the different gangs in this world, and he was a close friend of the man who would eventually become the King of Spades. But as should be expected, he was ultimately betrayed by his friend, his family's killed, and Saxon ends up in prison dying of cancer as opposed to leading his own gang. The final piece of the story is that Saxon has a ton of money, gold, and jewels stashed away, and the King of Spades, who, as a side note, hasn't been released yet in figure form, is trying to get the information from Saxon. But of course, after all the betrayal, and with little time left in his life, instead of playing ball, Saxon decides to reach out to a rival gang and reveal that information to them instead. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, Damtoys doesn't go too in-depth with the stories, they just give us the broad strokes and basic premise and let you take it from there. But it's an interesting story, and I do like the side story aspect because I think it definitely allows them to grow this figure line beyond just the gangs. Although, again, if they were just to stick with the gangs, that's still impressive, but I do like that they are branching out a little bit. So let's jump into the figure, and as is customary for us, we'll look at the overall package first. And one thing I will note with these side story characters is that it is a lighter release accessory-wise than your main characters. Granted, it's a prison inmate, so besides the swappable hands and cuffs, what else could he really come with? Although I do have some thoughts on that I'll save for the end. One thing I do like, especially for taking some quick shots of him, is that the front of the box does detach and has a background print on it. In this case, the print is of a prison cell block to serve as a backdrop for the character, so very appropriate. One other thing to note with these side story characters, they do not come with a playing card. Again, it's logical, but just in case you're looking for it, as he's not part of the gangs, he wouldn't come with one. So back to the figure, let's look at the accessories in depth and start off with the handcuffs. So he comes with one set of handcuffs and a set of leg restraints with the longer chain. These are excellent, and Damtoys really excels with what they do. First of all, they're real metal, which is a huge plus and definitely, I think, elevates the accessory a little bit. They do open and close and look really realistic, with the cuffs even having the two serrated pattern. So again, for a straightforward accessory, still pretty impressive. Only other accessory here are 3 separate hands, one which looks like a trigger hand for a gun or maybe even to hold a cigar, although the figure doesn't include either. A closed fist and the now standard FU gesturing hand, which has a nice tattoo on the figure itself. Like with previous releases, these are really nicely painted and they have some great stylized detailing. The hands and the feet on these can't be used with the other figures, as just because of that stylized version, they're very specific to this line. So that's it. Like I said, compared to the other releases, it's a little more bare bones. Now, let's take a look at the sculpt. And if you haven't figured it out, I believe this figure is supposed to look like Ed Harris, who is an amazing actor in his own right. Now, personally, The Rock is my favorite of his performances as Brigadier General Francis Hummel. So, as has become pretty standard, these sculpts are amazing. I think they managed to look like the actor, even in the hyper-stylized format. And Damtoys kills it with detailing in the paint apps, particularly on this one. There are a lot of wrinkles that even extend to the neck, right? He's an older figure, so they definitely, made sure that you realize that. So I think it's another home run. And like I said, it's a little harder here, but if you're able to look at the eyes, Here the eyes are really sunk in, but they're really lifelike, which is an accomplishment for such a stylized portrait. Now, I have been picking up the X06 figures, and I think if they could get the eyes to look even just almost a little bit more like these, those figures would be 100% elevated to another level. That's how good the paint applications on these Gangsters Kingdom figures are. As far as the rest of the figure, I usually go on about how great the tailoring is on these, and the same holds true here, just that it's a much simpler getup to what we've seen with some of the earlier releases. Here the figure comes with a white long sleeve undershirt and the orange prison jumpsuit with an elastic band on the waist, some pockets, and his prison serial number screen printed onto the left part of the jumpsuit. With the screen printing, I do worry about longevity, but it definitely works here. And I do have to be honest, and I don't know if it's just natural aging on the version I purchased because it is an older figure, or if it was part of the original release and meant to look like this, but I do like that the orange is showing signs of weathering and aging, and doesn't look pristine, which I do think goes hand in hand with the character description, since Saxon is supposed to have been in prison for some time. So, as is basically expected of Damtoys, everything here is done with care. Now, it all culminates on some work boots that are fully molded, but have some great detailing, even though, to be honest, they'll be covered by the jumpsuit most times. And as with other releases, Damtoys even gives us some nice detailing at the bottom of the shoe with a nice pattern tread. And those are the things that just elevate this above and beyond. So also, and I didn't know this beforehand, but if you do pull up his white sleeves, his white undershirt sleeves, he does have printed tattoos on both his forearms, and honestly, that's probably how I'm going to display him, since I do think those tattoos really make the figure stand out a lot more, actually. Now, the one on his right arm is a revolver with 4 bullets and the phrase courage and luck, and the left arm has a tattoo of an hourglass with the sand pouring down and the phrase beginning and end. And honestly, when he's standing there showing his tattoos with the backdrop, he kind of looks a little intimidating, and I do feel like I said before, those tattoos do add and give him a little more personality. Overall thoughts on this one, as we look at some poses, I was expecting to like this figure, right? I really like this line. There hasn't been one figure in the line yet that doesn't hold some appeal. And this one for me was the Ed Harris sculpt. Was based on Ed Harris, so more than anything, that was appealing. But surprise, surprise, I think I ended up liking the figure a lot more than I had anticipated. As I've said with this line before, one of the big things for me is the articulation, and this figure has a ton of range, with the jumpsuit being really unrestricted. So you can actually have a lot of fun displaying the tattoos or even just having him handcuffed. The cuffs definitely do add another level to him. Now, here's the one complaint with this one, and I kind of alluded to it earlier on. I wish he came with some more accessories. And for him, I wish he came with a table and chair. Can you imagine him sitting down for an interrogation? I mean, it's something that clearly Damtoys has been considering with some of their newer releases. I mean, for example, Angelo comes with a gorgeous chair, and if you get the accessories, it's a table and really provides a great diorama display. Same with Benson, so I feel like this figure would have benefited from that. So for me, I am envisioning trying to pick up something like the Hot Toys DX11 table, chair, and lamp set, because I think that would really add a little something to this guy in a display case. Sitting down, handcuffs, showing those tattoos. I'm not much for customizing figures, usually because I'm always a little scared to damage the piece, but I do pick up the occasional accessories. The other piece I'm trying to pick up for him will be a cigar, because I do think he'll look great sitting at that interrogation table, handcuffed but still smoking. I think it'll add a little swagger to the character. But for now, still very happy with him, and I think story-wise I do appreciate the FU hand that comes with him. It feels like he would be using it to flip off the King of Spades, and I would imagine before his captivity that the Jack of Spades would have been tasked by his father with extracting the location of the riches from Saxon, with Saxon telling him to go to hell. So while not as fully loaded as some of the other releases, this one definitely impressed me. It doesn't dethrone Nelson as my current favorite, but ranks up there with the rest of them. And I think, just like the others, he's visually distinctive enough that he still stands out. So this one is a quick one, I think. If you are thinking about jumping in the line, I think it's well worth it. And I do feel that they do let your imagination run wild. And now I'm just thinking, who else are they going to go make, right? There are a lot of slots still available, so I'm curious if we're going to get a version of, John Wick, Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Could Michelle Yeoh be someone coming to the club gang? Maybe the queen of clubs? The club gang definitely has a ton of spots still available, and there are some great icons still to be tackled, like Chow Yun-fat, Jet Li, Donnie Yen. So TBD, and hopefully Damtoys continues to impress. Plus, with the side story and memories figures, this is the line that I think can continue on in perpetuity, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. But I love Saxon, and I'm happy to have added him. So far, I have 6 left to pick up in the series, not including the 2 that are currently in pre-order, so I'm closing in on having the full set. So what do you think of Saxon and the side story figures overall? Let me know your thoughts, and as always, thank you for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll touch base on the next video.